Greetings, my fellow freedoms and stopping thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah, Roy City, Utah to be exact. And today's date is actually late Saturday night, July 2nd, 2016. Yeah, so it's just haven't done one in a while, so just had to check in, see what's going on. I know there's a lot of tyrannical legislation, issues, violence around the world, including the United States and beyond. But be mostly GLADIO, terrorist-related couple stuff, FEMA, and of course the origins of the Declaration of Independence, and something about Texarkana repeals transgender laws, ordinance. But it's gonna do a pretty not that big of a show, long show. So I'm just gonna try to make it, short and sweet as possible. But you never know. Yeah. So let's just kick this off right now by the Washington Post, and this is titled "Origins of the Declaration of Independence." Samuel Rutherford's Lex Rex by Dave Koppel. And if you hear fireworks in the background, yeah, usually the people in Utah, they like to blast them now and then, so which is all good. All right, so let's check it out here. It says here, it is the head of the government, subject to the law, or above the law. This was the question of the political crisis that caused the English Civil War in the 17th century against the absolutist claims of King Charles II. The answer to the question is one of the foundations of the Declaration of Independence. In 1644, Scottish Presbyterian Samuel Rutherford published Lex Rex, or the Law and the Prince. The point of the title was that the law precedes the king. The monarch must obey the law. Lex Rex refuted the royal absolutists who claim Rexless est lex lequens. The king is the law speaking. The antecedent for King Charles' principle was despotism of the late Roman Empire. The antecedent of Rutherford's was the Old Testament. The definition of the Hebrew nation is the people who live according to the law given by God. The Anglo-American idea of rule of law embodies Rutherford's principles. The law, not the individual who heads the government. It is the supreme ruler. The truth source of law is not the king's will, but God's will. King-made law that is inconsistent with God's law of natural justice and goodness is mere pretend law, not true law. Rutherford's used scholastic model of questions, assertions, and arguments. Unlike some of the Protestants, Rutherford quoted from and built explicitly on the Thomas Aquinas and other Catholics, such as the Spanish second scholastics Francisco Vitoria and Francisco Suarez. Like the scholastics, Rutherford paid great attention to Aristotle and to the political history of the ancient Greece and Rome. He agreed with the scholastics that man was by natural birth free. Every man by nature is a freeman born, that is, by nature. No man comes out of the womb under the civil subjugation to king, prince, or judge, to master, captain, conqueror, teacher, etc. And c. Accordingly, sovereignty was inherited in the people, but only conditionally granted to the kings by the people. Like previous resistance theorists, Rutherford extrapolated a right of resistance from the natural right to self-defense. Thus, because God has dominion over life and death, suicide was a crime against God. A person who did not defend himself is guilty of self-murder because he is deficient in the duty of lawful self-defense. Like most Catholics, Calvinist philosophers of the time, Rutherford moved seamlessly between natural law and the Bible, considering them perfectly compatible. One way a well-ordered society preserved a proper balance of power was ensuring that government did not have all the weapons. Two, did denude the people of armor because they abuse the prince is to expose them to violence and oppression unjustly, for one king may more easily abuse armor than all people. One man may more easily fail than a community. Rutherford was using armor in the older sense, by which arms and armor were interchangeable. On the final page of Lex Rex, Rutherford stated that the public magazine, militia, armor, forts, and strongholds did technically belong to the king, but only in the sense that he was the trustee to see that they be employed for the safety of the kingdom. The true owner of the militia, the weapons, and the forts was the people. Rutherford cautioned that a single bad act by a ruler did not justify revolution. Only if the ruler were systematically destroying the fundamental structure of society would the tremendous step of revolution be necessary. The 1776 American Declaration of Independence echoed Rutherford's belief, explaining that governments long established should not be changed for the light of transient cause, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object events a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is the people's right, it is their duty to throw off such government. The Declaration then provided a litany of King George's abuse, which proved the king's intent to destroy civil society. A history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. Although not explicitly religious, the Declaration made a conventional argument that the king was violating his contractual duties that the people had entrusted him to perform, that to secure these rights governments are insinuated among men, deriving their just powers from consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it. Rutherford argued that the people must address government abuses through methods that created the lowest level of disruption that was practically possible. Supplication was the first choice, flight the second option, and use of force the last resort. Similarly, the Declaration of Independence explained that the Americans had repeatedly asked the British for redress of their grievances and been met with constant rebuff. Fleeing to another country was not a realistic option to the entire American people. Accordingly, violent revolution was justified. Rutherford also relied on Roman law, especially Justinian's Corpus Juris. The Corpus Juris said that it is lawful to repel violence by violence. Like many writers of the Middle Ages and Reformation, Rutherford argued that the principles meant that it was lawful to resist unlawful tyrants. He acknowledged that sometimes tyrants were sent by God to punish all people for their sinfulness, but it was still lawful to resist tyrants. After all, God sometimes sent famine to punish a people, but it was lawful in a famine to attempt to grow crops and obtain food. There was little risk that the right of revolution would lead to chaos, just as the Bible clearly explicated the fundamentals of faith, so that hearsay was easy to discern. Natural law made tyranny easily discernible. The well-formed conscience would tell the people whether obedience to a law was contrary to natural justice. In some cases, an individual would have the duty to use violence against a king, as when a king attempted to force someone to commit adultery or sodomy. For general oppression, the proper leaders of resistance were the intermediate governors, e.g. barons, local officials, or in an American context, the state governments rather than the people themselves. Lex Rex was instantly banned in Britain and Scotland. In 1688, Rutherford was charged with high treason, but died before he could be tried. Local Conspiracy Newsletter, independent voice on law and public policy. So, interesting there, little provide address. Despite the ban, Lex Rex was widely read by Protestant dissidents and marked a major evolution in Protestant political thought. More than any previous English language text, Lex Rex developed a theory of how and when and why of revolution. The Lex text was transmitted to the American public mainly through John Locke's two treatises of government. Treatises of government. Locke's second treatise developed a secular version of Rutherford's right of revolution, mixed with other Calvinist theory, with a non-religious source. Thomas Jefferson later explained in the Declaration of Independence did not aim to express new principles, but was based on an American mind, including ideas expressed by elementary books of public right, as Aristotle, Cicero, Locke, Sidney, etc. And they have a link to Henry Lee, which is May 8, 1825. The president of John F. Kennedy, in his 1961 inaugural address, said that the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still issued around the globe. Among those issues around the globe here in the United States is the rule of law, Lex Rex. American presidents have sometimes acted as though they were above the law. The behavior and rhetoric of candidates Clinton and Trump does not inspire confidence. They consider themselves bound to rule according to law. Independence Day can be a time of reflection about whether the United States will continue to be, in the words of John Adams, put into the 1780 Massachusetts Constitution, governments of law and not of men. Interesting. Something I learned too about Lex Rex. And things inspired. So you have to really look at yourselves as individuals here in the United States and the world on those natural born rights and fight it when it's the last resort. Nothing wrong, according to this, killing the tyrants, because it is justifiable. And if you don't, then it's blood on your hands. So there's a nice little viewpoint on here about Samuel Rutherford's Lex Rex, and people should check it out. Type it in, you read it yourselves. And so I'm gonna, drop this off, and I'll probably make my own view on the end about Independence Day. But I will continue on here. Came from here, 21st Century Wire by Sean Hilton. GLADIO Summer, Istanbul Airport Attack. Who knew who benefits? Though many are still reeling in the wake of the Istanbul attack and subsequent tragedy, key geopolitical questions have emerged following this most recent act of terror. During the course of this article, we will examine the available evidence of the crime itself, then make our way into political aspects of the case. We've been told the Istanbul airport attacks bears the hallmarks of an ISIS-related incident, yet no official confirmation have been made. Interesting there, right? Terror in Turkey. According to the latest count, 44 people were killed during the recent terror attack at Istanbul's Ataturk airport. The heavily coordinated assault is also said to have injured between 239 and 250 others, and it says have been carried out by 3 suicide bombers, as the details of the attacks are slowly drip-fed from various international media outlets. We're told that authorities first exchanged gunfire with gunmen who opened fire after failing to pass through the standard airport security barriers. 3 men then separately detonated bombs in 2 different terminals as well as just outside an airport exit nearby a parking structure. An unnamed senior official with the Turkish government has stated that the Istanbul airport attackers are believed to have arrived from across Syria about a month ago, that the ISIS leadership were involved in the terror siege at Ataturk International Airport. Additionally, the alleged attackers believed to have been taking part in the Istanbul attacks are said to have come from Russia, namely Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan. Sorry about that. Prior knowledge. Oddly, only a day of this major attack, The U.S. Department issues a travel warning for Turkey, citing imminent terrorist activity. And there's a thing on the Turkey travel warning on June 27, 2016. Okay, so, and it actually was replaced, dated March 29th. I'll just do the top here. It says Turkey travel warning. And it says here, the United States U.S. Department of State warns U.S. citizens of increased threats of terrorist groups throughout Turkey and to avoid travel to southeastern Turkey. Interesting, huh? More interesting still, in less than 2 days, investigators determined that the Turk attack was actually set in motion over a month ago, which has led some criticism suggest that intelligence officials have obtained knowledge prior to the tragic triple bombing in Istanbul. In a news release from NBC, we've also learned that Turkish police have arrested 13 people allegedly in connection with the deadly attack at Istanbul's airport. Officials said Thursday, as the anti-terrorism police carried out 16 raids in relation to the Turkish attack overnight, according to the Turkish news agency Anadolu. 13 suspects arrested were transferred to police headquarters, while authorities are still in pursuit of 3 other suspects. It's unclearly exact how authorities have identified the alleged attack bombers. Most press outlets are relying on Turkish reports of passports have been conveniently found at the scene. UK's Mirror report that all 3 attackers were understood to have Russian passports in their possession, and that the sources also revealed it feared a second cell is about to attack imminently. In some ways, the Atatürk airport attack appears to have mirrored elements of the Brussels attack that took place in late March, with evidence of security and terror connection in the previously known cast of terrorist cells. And there's a terrorist, Chave, interesting here. And the attack is still being pieced together. The BBC revealed that authorities had already named the organizer of the Istanbul attack. The organizer of the attack is named by Turkish media as Ahmed GLADIO, a Chechen believed to have acted as an IS recruiter who is in the U.S. counterterrorism sanctions list. His fate was not immediately clear. GLADIO is believed to be a one-armed Chechen separatist now working with ISIS, said a Turkish police source to NBC News. Last October, the U.S. Treasury Department called GLADIO commander of the Yarmouk Battalion, the Chechen faction of ISIS that was planning attacks against U.S. and Turkish facilities. Question: How did the authorities name the organizer of the attack so fast? Uncloaked mastermind suspects and prior terror warnings. In less than 72 hours, investigators managed to name the organizer of the attack and knew the whereabouts of the alleged suspects' whereabouts for at least a month. Was Western intelligence tracking the group's movements? And if so, why weren't they stopped prior to the Istanbul attack? To provide typical context of this latest international caper, the news agency Republic of Georgia Freedom Democracy Watch published a report in October 2015 citing that Akim Chadayev, nicknamed Akim One Arm by Turkish press, a Chechen with Russian citizenship, has been under the watchful eye of the United States for being affiliated with ISIS for some time. Interesting. In fact, December 2012, Chadayev reportedly pledged allegiance to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the purported leader of ISIS. Interestingly, at the time, though, Baghdadi had not formally declared the formation of ISIS until April 2013, according to major media reports. In the reports entitled U.S. designated Ahmed Chadayev as a terrorist, we learn more about Chadayev's past. The updated list of individuals affiliated with the Islamic State of Iraq and 11 states that Ahmed Chadayev is currently acting in support of the terrorist organization which controls parts of Syria and Iraq. The U.S. Treasury Department further writes that Chadayev is the commander of the Yarmuk Battalion, a Chechen faction of ISIL. In the video, Chadiev greets militants in Dagestan who, in December 2012, pledged allegiance to ISIL and its leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, and says that ISIL and Syria rejoiced when they heard the news about their pledges. Notes about Chechnya reads, witnesses name Chadiev as being responsible in participating in a border shooting in Lapek in north of Georgia near Chechnya, and in September 2012 he surrendered without pleading guilty. According to the report listed above, Chadiev was detained in Ukraine, though Russia wanted him extradited on terrorism charges, but extradition requested was rejected. Well, something to really think about there, my friends, right? For means unknown to the public, Chadiev was released by the Georgian government in 2012, even though he was said to be linked to ISIS, was being observed by U.S. intelligence. The article continued by stating the following regarding Chadiev's cloaked past life. A Chechen and a citizen of Russia, Ahmed Chadiev, also known as Ahmed el-Shishani, was earlier reported to receive refugee status in Austria after being released in Georgian authorities and after reports that he might receive asylum in Austria. The video appeared on YouTube in February, which allegedly showed him in Syria as a commander of Yarmuk Battalion, which is a Chechen faction of ISIS. Yet Chadiev was operating as an informant intelligence community when he was released, and why he was granted asylum in Austria. For a man the United Nations says controls 130 militants. RT provides some background details. Chadiev joined Islamic secessionist militants that fought against Russia in the Second Chechen War between 1999 and 2000, where he lost his arm. Later, he was considered to be a representative of Daka Yamaro, once a terrorist in Russia and Western Europe. Continued, it was also revealed that in 2010, Chadiev was arrested in Ukraine with his mobile phone files containing a demolition technique instruction of photos of people killed in a blast. Russia requested his extradition on terrorism-related charges, but the European Court of Human Rights ordered Ukraine not to hand him over to Russia, with Amnesty International also urging Ukrainian authorities to halt extradition as Chadiev could face an unfair trial and would be risk of torture and other ill treatment. So this guy's like he knows a lot of people around here, huh? He was arguable evidence. Here we see arguable evidence of the EU obstructing justice aided by NGO Amnesty International. Why was Chadiev being protected, and by whom exactly? Was Ahmed Chadiev really involved in this event, or has he been injected in the story as convenient celebrity terrorist presented to the media at a latest mastermind in the order to dilute in any investigation? And it wouldn't be the first time either. That goes on here. Readers should be reminded again of the informant game we outlined in 2014 here at 21 Wire, which provided historical context to understand the intelligence community's dicey confidential informant past. Human Rights Watch explains the 214-page illusion of justice abuses in U.S. terrorism prosecutions. Examine 27 federal terrorism case from initiation of investigation to sentencing and post-convictions conditions, confinement. It documents the human cost of certain counterterrorism practices as overly aggressive string operations and unnecessarily restrictive conditions. This is interesting stuff here because it just goes on and on and on. So I could just leave it at that for the time being, just to let you guys know. You can read it all for yourselves. But it's just really shady, what's going on with this whole one world order and so forth. This, I could narrate this, go on, but it's a lot of questions. You gotta find out who actually benefits. So you gotta really look into this yourselves. I'll be talking too much and be here all day long. Of course, let's hear about Turkey and GLADIO, so you got to make their own judgment. I may see some GLADIO operations here too, so and that, like I said, it's getting too sloppy, making it really, really sloppy, and expect more of these attacks when this time comes. Of course, what's was it Erdogan? Yeah, Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He may be manifesting on this too. So based on this, a lot of discrepancies on here as well. So you gotta really like look into this. I'm not gonna just read all this in entirety because I'll be here forever. I say that out of respect. And I'm just gonna look at a few things over here. Yeah, absolutely. hmm Like I see here on the globalresearch.ca, the Orlando shootings, police SWAT team involved in the killings. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff in here. It says here the first shot came at 2:03 a.m. involving a confrontation between Mateen and a security guard at the entrance of the nightclub. And after the cop working at the security club, returned fire prompting Mateen to retreat further into the hotspot and take hostages. All right. According to police statements, there was, however, no active shooter situation in 2 a.m. in the morning requiring an immediate police response. Moreover, there was no firm evidence that killings of hostages had taken place. So there's some interesting stuff in here too. Like the Orlando police authorities initiated a process of negotiating with Mateen. When Mateen said that there will be no imminent loss of life, there would be an imminent loss of life. Orlando Police Chief John Mina was prompt to end a 3-hour standoff and ordered the assault and that killed Mr. Mateen and freed dozens of people trapped in the club. That's in the New York Times. Shortly after 5 a.m., the police used an armored vehicle burst through the wall of the building. A furious gunfight with 11 SWAT team members followed, during which Mateen was killed and the cop was saved from death when he was shot struck in his Calver helmet. That's the New York Times on June 12th. The Islamic State allegedly claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement released by the Amaq news agency, saying the onslaught was carried out by an Islamic State fighter. That's that's the mainstream media's aspect here. And of course, here, what really happened? Official FBI report acknowledges shooting at 2 a.m. does not confirm the occurrence of killings hostages prior to 5 a.m. The killing started when police SWAT team stormed the building at 5:13 a.m. So that's I see here. Time below. The Orlando Police Department timeline summarized in the FBI Tampa Press release not only suggests that no one was killed before 5:13 a.m. when the SWAT team broke into the building. It also confirmed that the first deadly shots were fired at 5:14 a.m. and that the suspect was killed 1 minute later, 5:15 a.m. This from the assessment by confirmed by Judge Napolitano, Fox News report. I think the video for that. Yeah, you hit that video. You see it. You can hear it from his own words. Police report does, however, acknowledge that the individual members entered the building before 5 a.m. According to the head of the SWAT team, Captain Mark Canty. Both SWAT and patrol officers pulled several people out of the club during the 3-hour standoff. It says here, killing of Omar Mateen. Mateen was allegedly involved in an exchange of gunfire with SWAT team starting at 5:13 a.m. While under the attack of SWAT team, Mateen could have killed and injured over 100 people in 1 or 2 minutes. The FBI report confirmed that he was killed at 5:15 p.m. Huh? According to the Orlando Sentinel, after most of the hostages got out, Mateen emerged from the first wall around 5:14 a.m. There was a barrage of shots and Mateen was taken down in that hallway at 5:15 a.m. Possible killings perpetrated by the U.S. SWAT team, barely mentioned by the mainstream media. Police officials have acknowledged that some of the killings could have perpetrated accidentally by the SWAT officers. The Orlando Police Chief John Mina and other law enforcement officers offered new details about the shooting, including the possibility that some victims may have been killed by officers trying to save them. That's in Naples Daily News, June 14th. Killing them in order to save them, an upside-down diabolical concept. Kill with the view to saving lives. It should, however, be mentioned that the Orlando Police Chief John Mina was not directly in charge of SWAT operation per se. The latter was under the command of Captain Marcanti. The police chief Mina intimated that 8 through 9 SWAT officers might have killed people in the nightclub by accident. There's a little quote below. The most important detail revealed that the Orlando police chief did not make the headlines of the mainstream media. It was reported locally in Florida Naples News. It was not picked up by national media attention. Officers may have shot Orlando club patrons. You can read it for yourself, this little article. All right. Mina said his decision to enter the club with such violence was tough. It was a hard decision to make, but it was right decision, he said. Our number one priority is on saving lives and the right decision to make. Orlando officers walked into the nightclub and found lifeless club patrons strewn around the bar and lounge area. More bodies were found nearby bathroom. Some victims could have been killed by officers who were trying to save them. Saving people by killing them? New normal? The SWAT police officers were celebrated as heroes by the mainstream media, having saved dozens of lives. Of course, it's under the London Mail. About hero cops who saved dozens of hostages, off-duty officer who first spotted the gunman, the SWAT team who engaged terrorists, and the policeman narrowly saved by Calvin helmet are named. This is from the source London Daily Mail. The possibility of SWAT killing at the Pulse nightclub was acknowledged and the casualty dismissed by the Washington Post, June 20th. The FBI is still working to determine if any of the victims at Pulse were hit by police fire, according to a U.S. law enforcement official who spoke on a condition of anonymity discussed on an ongoing investigation. The SWAT commander at Pulse said Sunday he was not sure if any victim may have been struck by an officer's gunfire. And the chief medical examiner has said he does not know, emphasis added. No further investigation by the Washington Post was required. Were victims shot by Omar Mateen or by the police SWAT team? Orlando Police Department timeline. See below, quoted by Judge Alpano, suggests that no one was killed before 5:13 a.m. when the SWAT team stormed the building. It also confirms that the first deadly shot were fired at 5:14 a.m. and that the suspect was killed 1 minute later at 5:15 a.m. Within the scope of 1 to 2 minutes, Mateen said it said to have 49 people killed and 53 injured, and this happened while the suspect was been fired by SWAT team. The reports are contradictory. First, the SWAT team was being fired upon by the suspect, who hid in the bathroom, and then acknowledged that he was killed when hostages started pouring out of the building through a hole in the wall when they broke down the wall. The cop rammed his Bearcat armored vehicle through the club wall. Hostages poured out. So Mateen's gun blazing with quick efficiency, officers shot him dead. This from the Naples News Daily. And it says right here. So it says it right here. With the above statement suggests that Mateen was executed at point blank with efficiency upon exiting the building through a hole in the wall, with the members of the SWAT team waiting to kill him upon his exit with the hole. If Mateen had known that he was to be executed, he would have attempted to exit the building through the hole in the wall together with hostages. Reports suggest that there was an extensive exchange of fire between Mateen and the SWAT team. Omar Mateen, 29, was killed by police when he engaged them in a gun battle. In the same Naples News report, quoting Police Chief Mina, there was a hole in the wall about 2 feet off the ground and 3 feet wide. We were able to rescue dozens and dozens of people who came out of that wall. Mina said the suspect came out of the hole himself with a handgun and a long gun and engaged gun battle with officers where he was ultimately killed. Visibly, the statement by Chief of Police Mina has convoluted, to say the least. It would have been impossible for Mateen to have effectively engaged the SWAT, SWAT official upon exiting the hole in the wall. Mateen's fate was similar to that to dead alleged ISIS Daesh terror suspects killed rather than arrested by the police in Brussels and Paris terrorist attacks. The official story is that Mateen killed 49 people and injured 53 on the order of the Islamic State. And the alleged took place according to OPT timeline. The lapse 1 minute, 2 minutes. Yep, same thing here. Okay. There were 11 SWAT police officers who stormed the building at 5:13 a.m. The suspect was reported dead at 5:15 a.m. According to Orlando Police Chief, 8 or 9 of the 11 SWAT officers accidentally shot a hostage. Statement of Orlando Police Chief Mina does not refer of an error of 1 or 2 SWAT officers. The entire SWAT team, 8 or 9 out of 11, under the helm of SWAT Commander Police Kennedy, accidentally fires the nightclub patrons. Well, CCTV camera footage. Local enforcement officials have acknowledged that the CCTV footage from several cameras inside Pulse nightclub were available, have been viewed and examined. So far, the CCTV footage of what happened inside the nightclub, including friendly fire of the SWAT team, has not been released. Then Mateen had the ability of shooting and killing 49 people and injuring 53 in course of less than 2 minutes, while also exiting the building through a hole in the wall in the 5:14 a.m. and confronting the SWAT team in crossfire. It is corroborated by the CCTV footage. The autopsy report as well as the ballistic reports have not been released. Ballistics is it worth noting that Mateen allegedly had a 6-saucer MC6 223 caliber rifle with a capacity of 30 rounds. He also had a possession a Glock 17 9mm semi-automatic pistol with a standard magazine capacity of 17 rounds. The semi-automatic parameters of the two weapons in his possession would not have allowed Omar Mateen to fire more than 100 shots within 1 or 2 minutes without magazine reloading. Note the timeline: 5:13, 5:15, 5:15 a.m. All a.m. Mateen was recorded dead. There's a video on that, so you can see it for yourselves. In regard, the nature of Mateen's semi-automatic weapons was acknowledged by USA Today report, which intimates that some of the killings were attributed to police-friendly fire. It is unclear how many rounds Mateen had with them, and authorities are investigating whether some of those killed were hit by friendly fire. It says here, the USA Today's couch statement tacitly recognizes that SWAT officers may have been responsible for some other deaths inside the Pulse nightclub, but that truth has to be suppressed. It is not worthy of detailed investigation. 2. Both 6-saucer as well as the Glock 17 9mm firearms used by Mateen were also used by police SWAT teams. Hey, which suggests that the ballistics of gunshot casualties in the nightclub by Mateen and SWAT would be hard to distinguish. Bear in mind, irrespectively, the number of magazines load Mateen had in his possession, he would not have been able to kill and or injure more than 100 people in a time span of less than 2 minutes. What is the stake? At stake, a cover-up of what happened inside the nightclub, which is casually acknowledged at the same time denied by the mainstream media. The unspoken truth is dismissed. The facts are twisted. Conclusion: we are dealing with an orchestrated cover-up. The forbidden truth has to be suppressed. Lies, half-truth, and innuendos in the mainstream media reporting none less straight from the horse's mouth. The SWAT police team was allegedly involved in the Orlando nightclub killings. Officers may have shot Orlando club patrons. A possibility of the victims may have been killed by officers trying to save them. That's from the Naples Daily News. Authorities are investigating whether some of those killed were hit by friendly fire. The FBI is still working to determine if any of the victims at the Pulse were hit by police fire. The SWAT commander Captain Kenny at the Post said Sunday he was not sure if any victims had been struck by officers' gunfire. Mina has said his decision to enter the club with such violence was tough. It was a hard decision to make, but it was the right decision. He said our number one priority is on saving lives and is on the right decision to make. The Obama administration, the FBI, the media casually dismissed the possibility of police involvement in the killings despite the statements emanating from police sources. Theater of the absurd. The official story is that the killings were ordered by the Islamic State, ISIL Daesh, based in Raqqa, northern Syria, which happens to be supported by financed by two of America's staunchest allies, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and close liaison with Washington. The CCTV footage is available to law enforcement officials, most probably may not be made by public. And there are some timelines you can look at yourselves by the police, Orlando Police Department and all that. So it's interesting stuff here. Dispatcher transcripts and all that. And let's see how coexisting is it. So you gotta really look at this really thoroughly. Okay, it's from the FBI's report, investigative report on the whole nightclub shooting. There's a link for that. This is why you have to always observe everything a lot thorough. And this is why that's how I examine this myself. Some may call it a false flag. It's possible, but some of the rhetoric I see here is a one-world order agenda. Is other people may got shot by the police themselves unintentionally? Friendly fire? Yeah, it's possible. I wasn't there, but you have to always see things a lot more thoroughly, and it's disturbing on this because a lot of folks, they still believe it's the guns, this and that, and you have a officer, a police officer, and all that. Yep, there's a temporary division with the FBI. Everything's right there. You can see the link yourselves. Has merit. So at least the link is honorable. So like I said, you guys really examine this more thoroughly to get the point across. But I find there's too many discrepancies in this case. Okay, so too many discrepancies in this case, and I always say this is trying to find a way of trying to take away people's firearms or make them prohibited, which it will not work, because if you study the 18th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution about prohibition, it backfired. Organized crime and corrupt governments. So this is really a lot more stuff's coming out. Too many holes in this case. I don't know how accurate it is, but you have to really make this judgment yourselves, my friends. All right. Sorry about that. Let me just take a little moment here. I'll be right back. All right. This next one here came from SHTF Plans by Mark Salvo. This is entitled FEMA Investigator Shock 9/11 Claim Villa Contents Emptied Before Attack. They knew it was going to happen. Yeah. The attacks of September 11, 2001 will be forever mirrored in doubt and suspicion by millions of people who saw the event live on television. Almost immediately following the attacks, theories began to emerge. Were the hijackers operatives for the Western Intelligence Service? How did the passports of one of the terrorists survive completely, unscathed, only to be found later amidst the rubble of the Trade Center? How did Building 7 collapse even though it was never struck by an airplane? Why was George H.W. Bush meeting with members of the Bin Laden family at the very moment of the attacks? Were the planes that hit the buildings actually commercial airliners, or were they remotely operated drones? Why was the entirety of Ground Zero quickly sanitized and shipped to China for recycling before an investigation ever took place? And what are the odds that on the very day terrorists used planes to attack the Pentagon and World Trade Centers, the U.S. military was holding exercises simulating hijackers crashing planes into buildings, a circumstance that led to total confusion across the United States and a complete failure of complete failure of national defense? These questions and thousands more have been subject to fervent debate over a decade, and like the Kennedy assassination, may never have an official answer. But that just has been the case of the investigation of JFK murders. New details and evidence continue to emerge surrounding the events of that day. A shocking report published by the Sun, former FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency employee Scott Sonnenfeld says he has evidence proving that certain insiders were privy to the attacks, perhaps including President George W. Bush. Ken Sonnenfeld was working for the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency as an organization tied to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security when a terrorist attack on a World Trade Center took place. After planes crashed into the buildings, Kurt was given unrestricted access to Ground Zero, the site where the buildings once stood. Armed with camera gear, the 39-year-old was asked to film everything he saw. His documented evidence was supposed to form part of a report about what happened, but he never handed back the footage. He says they want to silence him over what he saw beneath World Trade Center 6 evidence that he's convinced paints the Bush administration as big players in the deadly attack on American soil. Sporting bleached blonde hair, Kurt wove his way through the rubble of Manhattan's downtown financial district. He shot hours of footage but never handed it in. Of particular interest, he was found beneath World Trade Center 6. He says inside the building he came across as a vault that has been cleared of its contents before the plane's attack. In a documentary filmed in Argentina, Kurt said the discovery is proof that America knew the attacks were coming at the very least. One thing I'm certain is that of this agency of intelligence of the United States of America knew it was going to happen, and at least let it happen, he said. Not only did they know it was going to happen, but they in fact collaborated. It was given weight in a similar discovery on basement door below World Trade Center 4. According to a New York Times article, the door to a vault was still intact, but it appeared as if somebody had tried to gain entry. Behind the vault door was nearly 1,000 tonnes of silver and gold. According to 911 research, the vault under WTC-4 was reportedly owned by Comex. Reports describing the contents of the vaults before the attack suggest that nearly $1 billion in precious metals were stored in the vaults, a figure of $650 million in a National Risk and Inventor article published after the attack is apparently based on pre-attack reports. Unknown to most people at the time, $650 million in gold and silver was being kept in a special vault for 4 floors beneath World Trade Center. An article at Times Online gives the following rundown of precious metals that were being stored in the WC vaults belonging to Comex. Comex Metal Trading's 3,800 golden bars weighing 12 tons worth more than $100 million. Comex clients 800 ounces of gold with a vault about $220 million. Comex clients want 120 million ounces of silver worth $430 million. Bank of Nova Scotia, $200 million worth of gold. It is to mention that Sonnenfeld's wife died under mysterious circumstances shortly after he carried out his investigation. The cause of death, a bullet back to the head. Sonnenfeld was charged with the murder, but those charges were eventually dropped, at which he fled to Argentina. He has since remarried and had 2 children. The U.S. Justice Department is now attempting to extradite Sonnenfeld back to the United States, where he once again being charged with his wife's murder. But Sonnenfeld said the reasons behind the U.S. government's push to bring him back to America are more nefarious, and they are alluding to his intimate knowledge of the 9/11 Ground Zero crime, since that's a potential reason for taking him back into custody. We know for a fact that gold was being stored under World Trade Center 4. Perhaps similar riches were being stored in World Trade Center 6. That vault was completely empty when Sonnenfeld carried out his investigation, suggests foreknowledge high-placed insiders. Well, well, well. Mr. Sonnenfeld had a conscience. He does care. I'm not too creative about FEMA in general, but you see, you got good people in there, and now he's taking that risk. And it's interesting too about gold. All those metals were emptied under those vaults. Could we say New World Order 101? Oh yeah, always real convinced of that. So things get thicker, my friends, and one day the truth will come out officially, and these bastards will be brought to justice under judicial due process. All right, finally, this one here came from the New American. Came out Friday. Says here, Texarkana repeals transgender bathroom ordinance. The issue of transgender accessible bathrooms in the locker rooms of the opposite sex, which came to the forefront on the public mind in April when Target announced its new policy, has been quietly incubating behind the scenes for longer than most Americans are aware. The battle has been brewing for many months in its place as diverse as Washington State and Texarkana, Arkansas, as the radical left has conspired to create this issue and introduce it by stealth and deception. And while the communities all over the country are awakened to find that the issue has moved into their cities, counties, and states, many are organizing efforts to defeat it and returning sanity to their communities. In a surprising vote, the people of Texarkana overwhelmingly repealed Ordinance M130, which made bathrooms fair game for any and all regardless of their sex. The ordinance was passed in an emergency session of the Texarkana Board of Directors in January. Almost immediately, grassroots effort to repeal the launch. The New American spoke with Todd Alexby of Repeal 130, an organization made to diverse groups of Texarkanans, who told us that this ordinance was different from other ordinances in at least two important regards. It was passed amidst a flurry of deception and directly violated state law. A FOIA request revealed that they had planned this thing for, I think, about 10 months. Alex B. told New American, adding, on January 19th, someone noticed it was on the agenda, so people looked and came and spoke out against it, and they passed it anyway, unanimously. While a unanimous vote on the issue in this controversial would be strange all by itself, and the manner of which the board of directors passed this particular ordinance is even more troubling, Alex B. explained. They did it in this emergency session. Normally, what they do is that they'll read the proposed ordinance and they'll tell the people that they're going to read it again at the next meeting in a couple of weeks later. Then they read it at the third time. This time, though, they called it emergency. Read it 3 times in one night and passed it unanimously. So they planned their emergency for 10 months. And the ordinance, they were clearly aimed at opening all public bathrooms and locker rooms. Never mentioned those facilities. In fact, when Repeal 130 began its initiative to bring the ordinance up for a vote, the transgender lobby argued that it was not about bathrooms. Those who wanted to repeal were making much ado about nothing. As Alice B. told New American, the argument against repealing this ordinance over and over and over was that it's not about bathrooms. Bathrooms aren't even mentioned in the ordinance, but public accommodations are mentioned, and that certainly includes bathrooms. So a little more specification there, huh? He went on to say that the ridiculousness of that argument was apparent and became even more so as the battle raged on. And you think that argument will go away? We started immediately seeing new articles about guys and girls' bathrooms, videotaping and peeping, things like that. Girls that have been assaulted, we started seeing things immediately. Those stories were already out there, but people started seeing more of them. And so you think they quit, saying it's not about bathrooms. And then, of course, when the president issued his decree that if schools did not allow transgender bathrooms and dressing rooms, they would lose their federal funding, that really made it obvious that it's all about bathrooms. This ordinance was a stepping stone to that. And so they were saying what they were saying What the president's decree was saying, that it is more important to let boys in girls' locker rooms than to have enough money to feed lunch to poor kids, because that the money would be withheld. Osby also explained how the ordinance violated Arkansas state law. The ordinance was in violation of Arkansas Act 137 in an effort to promote uniformity, establishes protected class in the state of Arkansas, and say that no municipality may add to the list. With M130, Texarkana did that anyway and added sexual orientation and gender identity to the list. The state, which could have pushed back, largely ignored the infraction. The people of Texarkana decided to take the bull by the horns and fight for repeal. Axelby said it required collecting signatures from 50% of the people that voted in the last mayor election to get it repealed. Over initiative on the ballot that meant to repeal 130 committee had to get 1,109 signatures. They collected 2,600 signatures, I think 2,100 or 2,200, more than twice the amount required. It was approved by a city by valid signatures. Axelby said, so the city had no choice but to set an election and let the people vote on this issue. The city set the election date for May 28th. It was an overwhelming success. With 4,285 voting, the repeal passed by nearly 80%. The final vote was 3,401 to 801, number that one side demonstrates two things beyond any reasonable doubt. The people of Texarkana do not want men using the intimate facilities of women, and the city board directors hopelessly out of touch with the voters. But the ordinance was that obviously unpopular. Why did the board pass it unanimously? To answer the question, follow the money. According to Oxley, groups such as Human Rights Campaign have been funneling millions of dollars toward the little town of Texarkana, Arkansas, that shove things through. He added there are a couple other places in Arkansas where they unsuccessfully challenge those ordinances are still in place. In fact, the Human Rights Campaign, which is not the same thing as the Human Rights Commission, that though they are certainly on the same page, has committed $8.5 million to permanent campaigns in Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas. According to the organization's website, much of that money is being spent infiltrating churches in efforts to change the doctrine, or at least the practice of those churches in regard to men who identify as women and vice versa. HOC's communications told Baptist Press that his organization is making headway in this program. We want to successfully engage a majority of Mississippians on the issue of LGBT equality. This suggests the best way to do it is so speak authentically and from the heart. In the context of faith, as this campaign has shown, will continue to show we're doing just that. While the HRC may be just doing that in some areas, Texarkana is not one of those areas. Churches at both ends of racial and political spectrum unite to fight for the good and the right to create a landslide victory for truth. As dishonest politicians, unsuspectable church leaders, and unaccountable bureaucrats funded by the deep pockets of transgender lobby and its co-conspirators push this type of policy all across the nation, it is good to see the effectiveness of grassroots campaigns and organizations fighting back. In Texarkana, the battle was largely won by a combination of Facebook page with 794 likes and a few radio newspaper ads and 1,000-yard signs, which was a keep men out of our daughters' bathrooms. It just goes to prove when the grassroots are activated, good things seemingly and possibly things can happen. Encouraged by this victory, perhaps other communities in and out of Arkansas, we rally to push against these policies that endanger our women and children. God knows they need to. Well, he's right on that. Sometimes it's nothing new. You're going to have outside interference in these lobby groups and federal funding. Well, look at this. I'll tell you this. See, what happens is technically it's violating their 10th Amendment rights, okay, in the Texarkana, Arkansas area. So remember, Texarkana is like they have that city, like one side is Arkansas, the other side is Texas. I've been through there a few times. And when you got big lobby group, which is nothing new at all, but the people in that community has sent the message. It's plain and simple. If they don't get federal funding from Washington D.C., who cares? Okay, because technically it's encroaching on their jurisdiction. Washington, D.C. has no business actually telling them what to do if it's um, constitutional. Okay, if it's unconstitutional, it may be different, but it's just totally cockeyed. I say that in good faith. I'm not here to condemn people, transgenders, things like that, but we're all individuals. But if you're going to try to ramrod a town, especially you got some outsiders trying to tell people how to think, you know what? It's totally insane. And I see this as a total distraction. Alright? If you have a penis, use the urinal. If you have a vagina, if it's on urinary fashion, use the toilet. That's how I see it. And I'm not here to bash anyone or anything like that. But you're always going to be careful with bureaucrats getting involved and some of these, I would say, frivolous lobbying groups. Okay? They can be pretty frivolous at times. And so, yeah, like I said, it is very disturbing. But at least the people in that town sent a message. And all those dingleberries that voted on it and as their elected servants, they need to get out. No ends, ifs, or buts. Well, okay, well, all I have to say is this too about Independence Day to the people of the United States. When you celebrate on a grassroots measure, natural born rights. Read it, Declaration of Independence. Of course, it's pretty cool about the whole Lex Rex thing. I really find that really fascinating. And so definitely, you gotta really look into that. Because the past is today's greatest teacher, and each of us have duties. If the government is usurped, we have the power to abolish it and create a new government. Alright? I will denounce on the air again as the United States of America as a federal corporation, which is under Title 28, U.S. Code 3002, subsection 15. Null and void, unacceptable, which the Reconstruction Act made it happen in 1871. You have to really start looking at this and sharing this information with everyone you know. Learn the heritage of Independence Day. Don't just go out to get drunk, have your barbecues, and don't remember how it started. Because here's one thing for sure. The central banks are running us down to the river. Not just the U.S., but the world. Except for maybe 3 nations now that are not don't have no central banks. North Korea, Iran, and Cuba. Something to really think about. And I'm not being level-headed with these countries. However, the people should not be enslaved by these parasites. Their governments have their issues. Know it. I'm not going to argue about that at all. But the central banks want these nations for their one world order or banking order. So folks, really think about this when you celebrate Independence Day, July 4th, which the United States will be 240 years old. You want a republic or a corporation? That's how you want to celebrate. If it's a republic or a corporation. I prefer a republic. Bring it back, resurrect it. It can be done with one individual at a time. Alright, my friends, I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any comments or questions or got information you can send me, I have an address, that'd be great. However, use your comments with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com. Before I go, I want to play a cool little song by Sons of Liberty. It's entitled Tree of Liberty. And I will post a YouTube video on that, and you can see the video, has the lyrics and all that good stuff. It was actually, John Schaefer's band from Iced Earth, side project. So I did one a while back on a creature from Jekyll Island. I say, you know what? Be a good song to play for Independence Day. All right. Once again, my friends, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you. Have a very safe holiday.
It's time to act quickly. Face what's ahead. Revolution's at hand. You must see. I pray it's with balance. If they push us too far, bullets will rain in the streets. We look to the founders who inspire the cause. When hope is the loss to be free, we'll bring down the tyrants, forcing their hand, bringing them down to their knees. Now and then we see the tree of liberty must be refreshed with the blood of patriots and